The book of Revelation is a unique and special text. A wise preacher once mentioned that there are two books the devil hates the most. The first is the book of Genesis because it reveals the true nature of the devil. The second is the book of Revelation because it shows the devil's final destiny, the lake of fire. Additionally, Revelation shows us the future of the world. As you read it, you may notice that the events described 2,000 years ago are gradually being fulfilled. Chapter 9 of Revelation gives us an incredible glimpse into the spiritual world, where the spiritual realm mingles with the physical world. This chapter is considered one of the most controversial in the Bible. The late Wilbur M. Smith, an expert in the study of Revelation, once said, "Probably, besides the exact identification of Babylon in Revelation 17 and 18, the meaning of the two judgments in this chapter is one of the greatest challenges of Revelation." In this chapter, we find the description of two terrifying armies released to cause destruction: the army from the abyss and the army from the east. Today, we will focus on the army from the abyss, specifically the bottomless pit. Revelation 9, verses 1 to 12, has generated much debate among biblical scholars. Some believe this passage describes literal locusts coming out of the bottomless pit. Others think it refers to the decaying souls of the unsaved. Another interpretation is that John saw combat helicopters and, at the time, could only compare them to locusts. Some even say the passage describes an army of demons that look like locusts. The fifth trumpet was sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven to earth, and to him was given the key to the bottomless pit. He opened the bottomless pit, and smoke arose from it like the smoke of a great furnace. The sun and the air were darkened because of the smoke. Out of the smoke, locusts came upon the earth, and to them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. They were told not to harm the vegetation, but only those men who do not have the seal of God on their foreheads. And they were allowed not to kill but to torment these men for 5 months. The torment was like that of a scorpion when it stings someone. In those days, people will seek death but will not find it. They will desire to die, but death will flee from them. The appearance of the locusts was like horses prepared for battle. They had crowns like gold on their heads, and their faces were like human faces. Their hair was like women's hair, and their teeth were like lions' teeth. They had iron breastplates, and the sound of their wings was like the sound of chariots of many horses running to battle. They had tails like scorpions with stingers, and their power was to hurt people for 5 months. They had over them a king, the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon, and in Greek, Apollyon. One woe is past. Behold, there are still 2 woes to come after these things. John, the man who received the vision of the end times while on the island of Patmos, witnessed something remarkable. He saw that the beings emerging from the bottomless pit have a leader, a king who commands them. This king is called Abaddon in Hebrew and Apollyon in Greek. The story of Apollyon does not start here. We have heard this name in various contexts. There are movies and videos called Apollyon, and perhaps you have heard of Apollyon, the destroyer. Although the name is somewhat familiar, many people do not know who or what this entity is, its power, or what it will do. Some people believe the being mentioned by John is Satan himself, thinking Apollyon is another name for Satan due to the title, the Destroyer, given to this angel. However, Apollyon cannot be Satan, and I will explain why. The events preceding this part of the Bible show John witnessing angels blowing trumpets, each bringing a new disaster worse than the previous one. These events are part of a series of judgments. The 5th, 6th, and 7th trumpets are especially significant and are known as the 3 woes because of the severe calamities they announce. Revelation 9 verses 1 to 12, which speaks of the army coming from the bottomless pit, has been the subject of much debate among scholars. Some believe this passage describes literal locusts coming out of the pit. Others think they are the souls of the unsaved. Another interpretation is that John saw combat helicopters and, because of the time he lived in, could only compare them to locusts. There are also those who say the passage speaks of an army of demons that look like locusts. In John's vision, these beings from the bottomless pit have a leader, a king named Abaddon in Hebrew and Apollyon in Greek. This detail shows the organization of this destructive force. The name Apollyon means the destroyer, which enhances the frightening image of this entity. The description of Apollyon as the king of these beings raises questions about his identity and role. Although some identify him with Satan, this interpretation is not universally accepted. Differentiating Apollyon from Satan is important for understanding the structure of the forces of evil described in the book of Revelation. Apollyon is portrayed as a distinct entity, with his own domain and followers, separate from Satan. The fifth trumpet was sounded by the fifth angel, and something extraordinary happened. Revelation 9:1 says, "The fifth angel sounded his trumpet, and I saw a star that had fallen from the sky to the earth. The star was given the key to the shaft of the abyss." John saw a star falling from the sky. This star was given the key to the bottomless pit, a place described as a detention center for wicked angels, or the world of demons. It is also where Satan will be imprisoned for 1,000 years, as mentioned in Revelation 23. In Revelation 9, the pit is initially locked, but someone receives the key to open it. John identified this star as a being by using the pronoun he. The exact identity of this being is not clearly stated. Some say it is Satan, while others believe it is an angel. The identity of this star remains a topic of debate. Apollyon, or Abaddon, is an intriguing figure. He is imprisoned in the bottomless pit, waiting to be released. He is likely one of Satan's chief angels. Apollyon has the power to control demonic spirits and the authority to destroy. He is described as the king of legions of evil spirits that look like locusts and have the power of scorpions. These beings emerge from the bottomless pit, highlighting its role as a prison for demons, Satan's angels, and other evil spirits. The bottomless pit is a place filled with powerful and destructive entities. It houses demons, Satan's angels, and spirits controlled by these angels. The description of Apollyon as the leader of these evil beings provides insight into the organization and hierarchy of the forces of evil described in Revelation. Understanding the role and nature of Apollyon helps to comprehend the broader narrative of the end times, as described in the book of Revelation. The release of Apollyon and his demonic army marks a period of great tribulation and destruction, being a crucial moment in the unfolding of prophetic events. The sounding of the fifth trumpet and the release of Apollyon from the bottomless pit represent a critical phase in John's apocalyptic vision. This event highlights the immense power and wickedness of the forces at work and the profound impact they will have on the world. The fact that the Bible uses the word locust does not mean they were ordinary locusts. If we look at the descriptions of these locusts, they did not look like locusts at all. The appearance of the locusts was like horses prepared for battle. On their heads they wore something like crowns of gold, and their faces resembled human faces. Their hair was like women's hair, and their teeth were like lions' teeth. They had breastplates like iron, and the sound of their wings was like the thundering of many horses and chariots rushing into battle. They had tails with stingers, like scorpions, and in their tails they had power to torment people for 5 months. These beings described in Revelation do not resemble ordinary locusts. Typically, locusts have hind legs that allow them to jump. They do not have human heads, human hair, breastplates, or the form of horses. This shows us that John's description is not to be taken literally. Bible scholars believe that John used the term locusts to describe these beings because of their destructive mission and overwhelming numbers. What do locusts do? Simply put, they destroy plants. However, these beings will not be attacking plants. Normally, locusts swarm in large numbers, often in the thousands or even hundreds of thousands, making them impossible to count. Similarly, the beings John describes will be numerous and destructive, but their targets will be much more significant than plants. This vivid image indicates that these beings are not ordinary insects, but symbolic representations of a powerful and terrifying force. Their mission is to torment humanity, not to destroy vegetation. The use of detailed and frightening imagery serves to emphasize the severity of the judgment and the unprecedented nature of the suffering they will bring. The leader of these beings, Apollyon or Abaddon, highlights the organized and intentional nature of their mission. The name Apollyon, which means the destroyer, aligns with the destructive purpose of these beings. Their release from the bottomless pit and the subsequent release of their army symbolize a significant escalation in the tribulation of the end times. Understanding the symbolism and function of these beings helps us better comprehend the events described in Revelation. The torment they cause is part of a series of judgments initiated by the sounding of the fifth trumpet. These judgments become progressively more severe, underscoring the increasing gravity of the tribulation in the end times. The description of these beings serves as a warning of the spiritual and physical realities of the last days. Their supernatural characteristics and the power they wield point to a period of unparalleled distress and chaos. This understanding leads us to reflect on the nature of evil and the ultimate triumph of divine justice as portrayed in the book of Revelation. One of the most frightening aspects of this passage is the description of people seeking death but being unable to find it. Revelation 9:6. This reveals a deep level of suffering, where the torment is so intense that death is seen as a desirable escape but remains out of reach. This situation highlights the inevitability of divine judgment and the complete helplessness of humanity in the face of it. The psychological and physical agony described here is unmatched, showing a situation where even the natural release of death is denied. This adds a layer of horror and despair, illustrating the extent of divine wrath and the total control exercised over human existence in these times. The sovereignty of God is a central theme in the book of Revelation, especially evident in the detailed descriptions of divine judgment. God's control over life and death is clearly shown in Revelation 9:6, where people seek death but cannot find it. This passage highlights God's supreme authority over human existence, showing that even in their most desperate moments, humanity cannot escape His will. God's sovereignty is further evident in the events that unfold in Revelation. Every judgment, trumpet, and woe described in the book is orchestrated by divine command, indicating that nothing happens outside of God's control. The sounding of the fifth trumpet and the subsequent release of Apollyon and his demonic army from the bottomless pit are clear examples of God's meticulous planning and the execution of His will. The release of these evil beings is not a random act of chaos, but a deliberate part of God's judgment against a rebellious world. This organized and intentional release shows that even the forces of evil operate within the boundaries set by God. Moreover, the book of Revelation reveals God's sovereign timeline for the end times. The progression of events, from the opening of the seals to the sounding of the trumpets and the pouring out of the bowls of wrath, follows a divinely ordered sequence. Each event intensifies the tribulation, showing that God has predetermined the course of history and its outcome. The specific duration of the torment inflicted by the locust-like beings, 5 months, reflects God's precise control over the extent and timing of the suffering. In summary, God's sovereignty in the book of Revelation is manifested in His control over life and death, the orchestration of apocalyptic events, and the predetermined timeline for the end times. This sovereignty highlights God's supreme authority and power, reminding believers of His dominion over all creation and the inevitability of His divine justice.